Lanzhou Beef Noodles is an art.
The essence of beef noodles is the clear broth, white radish, red chili oil, green garlic, and yellow noodles. The chili oil fried at high temperatures must be tasted for its flavor. So you have to taste it every day.
It should be mastered and enjoyed by more people.
When Igua recently graduated from high school. Recently, he discussed with his parents, hoping they would agree to his plan of going to Lanzhou to learn to make ramen.
You should study hard. Call me if you need money, and I'll transfer you some. Find out the tuition fees and other expenses, and take the money with you. When you return and the house in town is ready, you can open a restaurant.
When Igua's wish was granted, his parents agreed to help him open a restaurant once he finished learning. When Igua lives in Baiguan Township, Lixian County, which is over 300 kilometers from Lanzhou, roads on mountains are rough. When Igua must first ride on his father's motorcycle to the county and then take a long-distance bus. After 6 hours of bumpy travel, he can finally reach Lanzhou.
If I can master the technique and my skills are up to standard, I'll open a restaurant. That's the first thing to do.
Making a bowl of beef noodles is a complex process. Typically, it begins with kneading the dough, followed by pulling the noodles, cooking the beef, cooking the broth, and cutting green garlic. Learning this craft can take anywhere from 3 to 4 years, or even 6 to 7 years. In the end, due to concerns about competition, one might not learn everything.
When I was an apprentice, the master used a steel-yard balance, like those used in traditional Chinese medicine shops, to weigh the ingredients. We were not allowed to know the exact amounts, such as the number of black cardamom seed pods and the amount of Sichuan pepper. We had to rely on our vague memory.
Liang Shunjian, from Pingliang, Gansu Province, gave up his studies in the early 1970s and came to Lanzhou to become an apprentice at a beef noodle restaurant. He was only 15 years old. Back then, skills were usually passed down through apprenticeship, or from father to son. Learning to make beef noodles was no exception. Under his master's guidance, Liang gradually learned the skills of dough making, kneading and pulling and broth cooking.
Only a few chefs had mastered all techniques, such as making broth, cooking beef, and pulling noodles.
For many learning to make beef noodles then, finding a skilled chef who would share real techniques required both effort and luck.
Once, someone offered the chef 800 yuan to poach him. As a result, he left the next day without telling the restaurant owner.
Liang Shunjian was lucky. The chef's unexpected departure made him the key person at the restaurant.
The next day, we opened the door and the boss came to see no one was making noodles. He wanted to close it, and I volunteered to give it a try.
Liang Shunjian stepped up, because he had tried every way to quickly master the corn noodle making techniques, before the master left.
Every day, I bought soybean milk and books for my master. He taught us everything except the broth recipe and the techniques of making ramen. I practiced in secret every day and mastered it all. But the boss didn't know I could make ramen. After I tried, he found that the noodles were good and the broth's flavor hadn't changed. From that day on, I transitioned from apprentice to master.
For over 30 years, Liang Shunjian and his predecessors continued the traditional teaching of Lanzhou beef noodles. In 2007, Liang made a decision that shocked his peers.
I have friends from all over the country. They called me, asking for Lanzhou noodle masters. They wanted to recruit people who could make authentic Lanzhou beef noodles. However, I failed to find such people.
By chance, Liang Shunjian decided to open a ramen training center in Lanzhou.
Next, we'll learn about the seasoning of.
The power of business prompted Liang Shunjian to change the way this traditional skill was passed down. Here, when Aigua and his classmates started their future career journeys. In Lanzhou, the average annual revenue of a beef noodle restaurant is several 100,000 yuan. Liang Shunjian runs beef noodle restaurants while training ramen chefs, which has brought him even greater returns.
Enjoy!
On his first day at the training center, when Aigua enjoyed authentic beef noodles. After about 3 months of learning, he could make a bowl of authentic Lanzhou ramen himself. In Lanzhou, the broth is considered the soul of the noodles. The best broth for Lanzhou beef noodles is clear broth, followed by milky broth, and then thick broth. To make the best clear broth requires considerable effort. The preferred meat for the broth is yak meat, supplemented with beef marrow and shank bones. About a dozen spices, including Sichuan peppers, black cardamom, and bay leaves, are added in a specific ratio. After 5 hours of simmering and multiple filtrations, the broth is ready. As the saying goes, the nose smells the aroma, the tongue tastes the flavors. People's gustatory system is extremely sensitive. To create a dish with perfect color, aroma, and flavor, the selection of ingredients must be meticulous, even for the side dishes.
Hold the knife vertically. Don't cut like this. If you cut like this, the radish slices will become bigger and bigger, and they won't be the same size.
In fall and winter, radishes harvested after frost are juicier and sweeter, with less fiber. They taste tender and sweet. When cooking the broth, they can remove some of the gamey smell from the beef and mutton, increase the broth's nutrition, and enhance its flavor.
Every beef noodle restaurant has chili oil, which is not a rare item. However, making it authentically is quite complex. There are strict requirements for the origin of the chili peppers and precise control over the oil temperature. During the preparation, the oil must reach 225 degrees Celsius, and then lower to 175 degrees before use. The ingredients must also be adjusted according to changes in altitude and climate. If people know that more than 20 spices are added during the process, they will no longer wonder why they can't replicate the chili oil at home. Clear, white, red, and green summarizes the look of beef noodles and aligns with the essence of traditional Chinese culture. Clear broth, white radish, red chili oil, and green garlic create a simple, appealing palette, resulting in a clear, inviting broth. The phrase, clear and white, echoes the idiom implying purity and integrity. The process of making ramen is more of a performance than a production. However, in the early days, learning this skill was not as easy and pleasant as when Igwa watching his teacher demonstrate.
Back then, if you touched the dough, you had to eat what you made. To get a chance to handle the dough, I once ate up to 15 bowls of noodles in a day. It took me 40 days to master this skill.
This is the basic skill of making beef noodles, kneading the dough. It seems simple, but it has strict demands on physical strength and technique.
The kneading process of making Lanzhou beef noodles is different from that of other noodles. For example, doughs of daxiaomin are made into a ball. For Lanzhou beef noodles, the dough is kneaded in a spiral pattern, repeatedly folded back and forth to align the fibers in one direction. This increases the dough's elasticity.
This skill is like a magic trick in the eyes of many people. A professional ramen chef can pull a lump of dough into various shapes of noodles in less than 10 seconds. The noodles flying in the hands of the chefs are graceful and free. But it's not so easy for new learners to perform. If the dough is not kneaded properly, it will lose its elasticity and break when pulled. If the force and speed are not controlled evenly when pulling, the noodles will be of uneven thickness. These two steps can be mastered with a short time of practice. However, for new learners, the most challenging part is making the broth. Using hundreds of seasonings to create a delicious broth is not something that can be achieved by practice alone. It requires many attempts and failures.
The internship duration is up to them. After completing the training, if they feel they are still not proficient enough, they can return to my restaurant for further practice until they have fully mastered the skills.
When Igwa's 3-month training is coming to an end, he has already started to prepare to open his own noodle restaurant in his hometown. Feng Yunchang is known to his friends as Fatty Feng. In 2000, he moved from Lanzhou to Shenzhen and opened a beef noodle restaurant here.
I think making beef noodles carries a lot of emotions. I've loved eating them since childhood. Eating beef noodles feels festive.
This is where his dream began. Back then, in a tin house by the street, Feng Yunchang spent all his money to open his first beef noodle restaurant. It brought the authentic Lanzhou beef noodles to Shenzhen.
Because I love it. I'm passionate about it. I like it very much. Not eating it for a while makes me feel sleepy. I really love eating beef noodles.
More than 10 years have passed. Feng Yunchang now has more than 10 beef noodle restaurants in Shenzhen. His first task every morning is to taste the first pot of broth in the kitchen. Only when the taste is right can he feel at ease for the day. While Feng was tasting the first pot of broth, miles away in Beijing, Su Deming was also examining the first pot of broth.
Yeah, it's good. Very fragrant. Every morning, the first thing I do is go to the restaurant and taste the beef noodles to see if they taste the same as before, and if they are still delicious, including the chili oil.
Su Deming recalled that during his first days in Beijing, it was particularly difficult to find authentic beef noodles.
I couldn't find really delicious beef noodles in Beijing. They didn't have the taste of Lanzhou. So I went back to Lanzhou to find Lamian chefs. And my friends. We came to Beijing to make Lanzhou beef noodles. We spent about 4 months renovating the restaurant and adjusting the recipe, and finally got the taste right.
Due to regional differences, the same seasonings and proportions in the recipe produced a completely different flavor in the broth.
We use 3 seasoning packets in one pot. Each packet weighs 1.5 kilograms. All the seasonings are transported from Lanzhou.
Adaptability, perseverance, and innovation. These words are also reflected in an ordinary bowl of noodles. Whether in its hometown or far away, this lady who is expertly hand-pulling noodles is named Feng Xiaomiao. 3 years ago, she traveled alone from France to Lanzhou to learn how to make Lanzhou beef noodles.
I wanted to start a business and noticed that there were only a few authentic Lamian restaurants in Paris. In China, the broth of Lanzhou Lamian is made with more than 30 different traditional Chinese herbs. Considering the lighter taste preferences of the French people, who are not used to the strong flavors that Chinese people enjoy, I reduced the number of ingredients in the broth from over 30 to less than 20. I also replaced radish with bok choy.
Such clever adaptation is likely a necessary experience for all external business owners. Another noodle restaurant 4 streets away has infused the beef noodles with richer emotions through daily operations. Duan Xiaorong, from Lanzhou, has been running a Lanzhou beef noodle restaurant in Paris for over 5 years.
We put our heart and soul into kneading the flour into dough, giving it life. That's why it follows us. We must love it. It knows love too. You need to love it, like it, and make it. Our chefs, including myself, deeply understand this. When you love it, you can make it dance.
Running a restaurant alone in a foreign country comes with many challenges. Duan Xiaorong asked her son for help. His name is Zhang Zhe, a singer, famous in Lanzhou. He has added more Chinese elements to the Chinese restaurant in a foreign country.
I'm the cashier.
The melody often heard in the restaurant was recorded by Zhang Zhe during his music days in Lanzhou. For him and his mother, music and noodles both carry the taste of their hometown. Several years have passed quickly. Whether it was the young music-loving boy or the current beef noodle restaurant owner, Zhang's passion for life has never waned.
I still hope to create something new, like new ideas. I designed this myself. It was inspired by the slogan, "I love New York." People who have been to Paris would say, "I love Paris." I put the name of our restaurant here. I love Les Pot Vivant.
After several years of hard work, Duan Xiaorong and her son are busy renovating their third Lamian restaurant in Paris. For them, this is another new start.
Overseas Chinese are indeed hardworking. They overcome numerous difficulties to bring many aspects of Chinese culture here, including its cuisine. Everyone has their hardships, and everyone has their own story.
One thin to wide 3 semi-wide.